As if our shocking school dropout rates weren't enough cause for concern, we learned recently that closing schools in response to the pandemic seems to have caused those numbers to spike even further. Claire met a couple of young people who've now joined the ranks of the unemployed and possibly unemployable.
This is Zengeziwe Msimang. As an executive officer at a non-profit organization helping young people find jobs, she has a lot on her plate. Operating in a country with one of the highest youth unemployment levels in the world is challenging enough. Finding work for those with little or no education near impossible.
We have something that we call NEETs, which is young people who are not in education, they're not in employment, and they're not in training.
And while the country's recent unemployment figures paint a grim picture of mass joblessness, the numbers relating to young people are truly staggering.
We're looking at almost 66% of young people who are not in employment right now. And when you round that out, looking at youth, that's 10 million young people between the ages of 18 and 35 that are not employed.
Put another way, 2 in 3 young people who could be contributing to the economy can't find work.
I think we should be alarmed. I think we should be gravely concerned.
The economic impacts of 10 million jobless youth are significant. The social consequences, arguably, more so.
They're doing drugs. You have young people who are not doing anything, so they're getting into the world of gangsterism or doing petty crime. Or as we saw with the July riots, which is not to blame young people only, but to say that a lot of these people who are coming out in waves are young people who are not working.
And as if this toxic cocktail of drugs, gangsterism and violence weren't enough, in early 2020, things got even worse. COVID-19 has done more than batter the economy and overwhelm the health service. It's added to the already alarming number of youths who find themselves in the ranks of the unemployed. In response to the virus, government closed schools and moved learning online, a pattern that repeated itself as cases ebbed and flowed.
Cabinet has decided today that all public schools should take a break for the next 4 weeks.
Months later, a picture of the difference between policy and outcome is starting to emerge. A recent study by Statistics SA, which included college and university students, suggested that 11.7% of young people were offered the option of remote learning. What then of the remaining 90%, many of them at school? Another study provides a clue. By May last year, say its authors, 750,000 children aged between 7 and 17 had stopped attending school. That's triple the pre-COVID number and the highest rate in 20 years. While older than those reflected in the survey, Sanele Mugele now counts himself among the absentees. On what is a school day in Kanana Park, south of Johannesburg, Sanele is whiling away his time at home. The pandemic presented him with challenges he simply wasn't equipped to deal with. A 2020 study showed that some young people over 18 years had access to smartphones that could be used for home learning. In communities like Sanele's, that number plummets, so much so that online learning in Kanana Park is less tablet and more telephone. It wasn't the first time Sanele had failed a grade. This time, though, the pandemic dashed any hope of bouncing back. And he's not alone. In this area, there have been a massive number of learners, just like Sanele, who have decided not to return to the classroom. Right now, I'm on my way to meet another young man in a similar position. 20-year-old Thapelo Mokheletsane, already battling the demands of living in an impoverished community, struggles to adapt during the pandemic.
Hard, term 1, I fail at term 1. That's jail lab, under pressure from there.
But Thapelo's life-altering decision doesn't appear to have moved those entrusted with his education. When schools opened this year, did they call you?
Staff principals.
One of more than 60% of learners in a lower grade than appropriate for their age, Thapelo's struggles began long before COVID. And while the pandemic was the straw that broke the camel's back, South Africa's dropout scourge is complex. For some students, dropping out is the result of years of academic hardships and wrong turns. For others, the decision is a response to conflicting life pressures, the need to help support their family financially, or the demands of having to care for their siblings or their own child.
A child can be pushed from school through experiences at school, home factors and community factors that they navigate.
Merle Mansfield is director of NGO Zero Dropout.
Now, as these factors increase in your life without any protective interventions, your disengagement heightens. And eventually your disengagement becomes so heightened that you completely disengage from school and drop out.
In other words, dropping out isn't the result of a single event. Instead, it's a snowball effect of one challenge building on another, and a global pandemic has simply added more snow.
So we see how the impacts of food security, job security, income within households have also been threatened. And that crisis and stress environment has impacts for our kids. So if we're looking at how those factors, both pushing and pulling kids from school, the increase in dropout is expected.
There are many efforts that are being put into supporting children. What is lacking is societal involvement.
Elijah Mhlanga is spokesperson for the Department of Basic Education.
Where are we losing the kids to? When they are not in school, where are they? Maybe that's what we also need to ask ourselves. Who is there? Why are those people not bringing you back to school?
It seems, in attempting to answer that question, the department sometimes opts for the stick over the carrot.
Whether a caregiver, parent, or neighbor, or whoever you are, if you are not getting your child to be in school, especially if they're of compulsory school-going age, the law must take its course. And in this case, we said imprisonment of up to 6 months. But we are amending that to say 12 months now.
With 750,000 of the country's 13 million school-age children not in class by May last year, it's hard to see what impact a longer possible jail term will have. And what of people like Sanele and Thapelo?
Our education system has a compulsory school-going age, and it is from 7 to 16. These are learners who are often older than 16 years old. So there seems to be less impetus to do something about that.
The highest dropout numbers were of school pupils in grade 8 and 9, followed by those in the FET phase between grade 10 and 12. The department adds that between 50 to 75% of a normal year's worth of learning was lost during 2020. When you look behind the skyrocketing dropout rate, you'll discover personal stories of young people that are facing their own challenges. While they might believe that dropping out is the best solution for right now, what does that mean for their future and ours?
We invest in them, and the planning and funding allocation is based exactly on that. So when a child does not come to school for whatever reason, they drop out, it becomes a loss, not just to the school or the system, but to the country.
While the department counts the cost of an investment without a return, Thapelo and Sanele are clinging to hope of a better life. But it's hard to ignore that they're facing the future as statistics. 2 of millions not in education, not in employment, not in training. So this year, iplan yakho, what are you doing with your life?
This year, iplan yami bengizitshela ukuthi ngizoya college. Then uma already kwamanje sabhekane nesikolo asikasithuli kahle kahle. Asikasithuli and ngifuna ukuya college. At least isikolo sezandla ngikhona ukubona ukuthi ngenza kanjani. Eqinisweni angiworried kakhulu ngoba I'm a firstborn kumama wami. Kulandela abantwana bakithi bayi2 and umama usebenza yi1. I just wish ukuthi nami ngingena ngama-plastic endlini at least umama naye angasindelwa yi-one. Yeah.
Ngithola umsebenzi fast nje umsebenzi o-right for mina before ngizokuthi ngiloko ngiganga yabo it's like ngoba ngiyazi uma ngiloko ngihleli la ejardini it's like maybe kungavuka le nto lokuthi hayi thingambe nyoganga it's like yabo ma ngithanda kanjalo.
Budget getting the better